So I'm Christina Warner. I'm a family and animal protection barrister at Goldsmith Chambers, and I have Stargardt's disease. Stargardt's is juvenile macular degeneration. I got my diagnosis at the beginning of this year after noticing that my eyesight was diminishing quite quickly. But I'm now very open about the challenges that I face as someone with a non-visible disability. I did a degree, I did English law and Spanish law, and at that time my eyesight was absolutely fine. I had a driving license. It was as every able-bodied person. And it was really, I'd say 5 years ago or so that I noticed that something was happening, but it was nowhere near as severe as it is now. And I am a barrister in Chambers. I've been very keen to maintain my practice. And the way that I've done that is by getting the support that I need from my colleagues in Chambers, who've been fantastic. So in terms of my job, I went through the Access to Work scheme, which is challenging. And I think it's good to speak to other people who have similar disabilities so that you know what it is that you're seeking. So you can go in with a clear idea of what it is that you're seeking the access to work to help you with. I have a support worker. I use IT as every other lawyer does. Everything's digitalized now. And I use a lot of reading software so that documents are read. But I let the court staff know, and I have my badge that shows that I'm visually impaired. And by letting the court staff know, they tell the judge the brutal honesty of some friends that have disabilities who have just very clearly told me that you need to get busy with living your life.
At school, because my mother was a teacher, she always had this idea that she was seeing things that weren't there because she was a teacher. So I was good verbally, I was good at my lessons, I was a C/B student, but my spelling was really, really bad, and I couldn't seem to do anything to make it better. And I had a really bad memory, I wasn't very organised, all these little things. Unfortunately, when she went to her Senko, when I was in primary school, which is a very long time ago, the Senko actually told her that dyslexia didn't exist. And then when I went to secondary school, my mother noticed that I was reading a sign and I was staring at it really strangely, and she asked me why, and I said, well, I'm trying to keep the words still. And so my parents had to pay privately for me to have a dyslexia test just before my GCSEs. And they said I was amazingly dyslexic, and they were very surprised I had survived school. So I would use displays a lot in the classroom. I would definitely use them for spellings. I would always have my eyes looking everywhere for any words that I would use in my writing. My writing was very different from my verbal skills, and I would use music a lot and colour a lot. So spellings, I would sing them to learn them, to remember them. And even now to this day, some words I have to hum in order to remember how to spell them. Colour coding, my whole life was colour coded. Everything was colour coded. There's no real excuse now to not be educated about this subject. And once you talk to someone who has a specific learning difficulty like dyslexia, and then you ask them to write, it's very, very clear that it's two different people. All those people that are being told you can't do it, or it's impossible, or all over the place you see it in media, in films. There are characters that are dyslexic that are just sort of left because they can't do anything. My father, who's dyslexic, was told, you're just lazy, you're not going to do anything. And so people don't really have an excuse now. You really have to find out about these things and appreciate that the child in your class or your child that's dyslexic, it's really tiring and it's really stressful, and they are having to work harder.
Well, my epilepsy started when I was 12 years old at quite a shocking moment when I had a seizure in school, and I've tried lots of pharmaceutical drugs, and none of them reduced my seizures. A treatment called kinegetic diet reduced my seizures when I was 35. And that's the only thing that's reduced my seizures since. There's been lots of mixtures of reactions when people get very shocked of epilepsy and falling on the street. So, but a lot of people have been very helpful with it, and I've created lots of friends through it. I did lots of speeches through university and college just to raise awareness of epilepsy. I ran a juggling group with my brothers which has been very helpful because they've brought out some research recently about how much juggling helps your memory. So doing little things, juggling around, and lots of fun things, and just keeping yourselves up in life. And I got a 2-1 degree in drama as well. I have at least tonic-clonics at least every fortnight, and the myoclonic seizures come along with stress, and so they come and go, and it's not really, you can't really understand where they're coming, unfortunately, which is one of the most difficult things with my epilepsy. When I did a speech about trying to raise awareness about epilepsy, they thought that I was the devil incarnate, and so you don't really think that that's going to happen in this day and age, but when it actually happens to you, it's very shocking and can be demoralizing. But all you can do is say, well, if they've got a bigger problem than I have.
Now, at the time, I didn't know anybody that had MS, didn't have a family history of it, was, really surprised. And over the course of my PGCE year that year, I had maybe 50 hospital visits, appointments, GP, just alongside my placement. At this point, I'd already had an NQT position. I was moving to the other end of London. I was moving to Newham, and I wasn't sure what to do. I had a lot of discussions with my tutor at the Institute of Education, and, she, as anyone would say, she said, go for it. I'd already told them before I joined that I had MS, and there wasn't really a response. They said, we look forward to seeing you in September, but I wasn't sent to occupational health. And because it was my first role, I didn't really know what I was supposed to do. And he said, you need to think really carefully about whether or not you want MS on your record. And, it really scared me. I suddenly, I'd been there for maybe 5 hours and already felt like, maybe this was a mistake. That I then had a stage 1 meeting, so quite a formal meeting with the vice principal of the school. And I remember telling him in detail about, optic neuritis and my MS diagnosis and why I was off school. And he ended up writing meeting minutes where he'd essentially lied about me. And
so I was given that special leave. But when I came back in January, it was a lot worse. I remember initially they promised me a phased return. They cancelled it as soon as I came back. So about an hour or two into the school day, they said, oh, we've made a mistake. Actually, you don't have a phased return. And it was a big part of why I was returning in the first place. And from then, they did the classic, I started to get observed 24/7. Just remember feeling as though MS and teaching just aren't compatible. I honestly just thought it's not possible to have MS that's stable and, work in a school, because I had to relearn to walk and everything in that year, So I quit teaching. I ended up applying to another school in Newham and for a non-teaching role. And when I applied for that role, they asked me in interview, how come you're a qualified science teacher? It says here that you did a PGCE at the IOE. What happened, if you don't mind sharing? And I essentially, everyone had said to me, don't say anything, it's unprofessional, to mention health or tribunals in, an interview. But I honestly couldn't help myself. I just wanted to be honest. And I said, I've got a tribunal with my previous school. I'm a person with MS. And I was mistreated, in my opinion. And I remember they called me when I got home and they said, we'll offer you either the job that you applied for or, a full-time teaching post without having to do another interview. And it genuinely meant so much to me. And